The church bells tolled, echoing through the hollow silence that surrounded me. I stood there, my tuxedo crisp and my heart racing, but the woman I was supposed to marry didn't show. I waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. I kept telling myself she would come, but the truth was there, creeping into the pit of my stomach. She wasn't coming. I was being abandoned. Left at the altar. I couldn't understand it. What had gone wrong? We would be perfect, at least, I thought we were. But now, I was alone, humiliated, and lost. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and instead, it became my greatest nightmare. Then, she appeared. But not who I was expecting. The wedding planner, Evelyn, stepped into the empty aisle, her eyes full of sympathy and something else, something more dangerous. She would always been there, quietly organizing every detail, and I'd never noticed. She stepped forward, offering her hand, a calm smile tugging at her lips. You don't have to be alone today. It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness, but in that moment, it felt like the beginning of everything. I was a man broken by betrayal, and she was the unexpected cure. But nothing in this world comes without a price. Chapter 8. I stood at the altar, my palms sweaty, heart racing. The church was filled with people, our family, our friends, but it was as if I was in a dream. A nightmare. The silence was deafening. The bells rung in the background, but all I could hear was the ringing in my own ears. Where is she? I whispered to Josh, my best man, though I already knew he didn't have the answer. He shifted uncomfortably next to me, eyes darting nervously to the back of the church. She'll be here, man, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Just give her a minute. A minute. It felt like an eternity. I couldn't look at the guests. I couldn't even focus on the beautiful flowers Claire had chosen, the music playing softly in the background, or the smell of the candles filling the room. All I could focus on was the space beside me, empty where Claire was supposed to stand. I couldn't breathe. I turned to Josh. She's not coming, is she? Josh opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. I didn't need him to say anything. I already knew. Something was wrong. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I knew her, knew us. How could she leave me like this? What had I done to deserve this? We would spend years building a life together. I had seen our future, us growing old, having kids, buying a house. I had even promised her forever, like a fool. Where is she? I asked again, my voice cracking. Josh put a hand on my shoulder. I don't know, man. But she'll be here. But she wasn't. And deep down, I knew. She wasn't coming. Chapter though, the minutes dragged on, but they felt like hours. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing in some sort of twisted reality. People were looking at me, but I couldn't bring myself to meet their eyes. It was as if the world was spinning, and I was frozen in place, unable to move. Maybe something happened, Josh offered again, though even he was starting to doubt. He checked his watch, his jaw tight with frustration. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the sound echoing louder than any of the chatter around me. My fingers fidgeted with the cuff of my sleeve, but that was just a distraction. My mind kept returning to the same thought. Where is she? The church doors, which were supposed to open for her, remained shut. I kept staring at them, hoping, praying, that any second they would swing open, and she would walk down that aisle in her perfect white dress, smiling that perfect smile. But nothing. Nothing but the same silence. I looked at Josh, desperation creeping into my voice. Why isn't she here? She was so sure about this. We were so sure. Josh opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. He seemed as lost as I was, trying to come up with some sort of logical explanation that would make this all make sense. But there was no reason. No excuse. Claire wasn't here. She would left me standing alone, dressed in a tuxedo, in front of everyone I knew. I felt sick. What if? I couldn't finish the sentence. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. What if she left me? I glanced around the church. My parents, her parents, all of them staring at me with pity in their eyes. I wanted to scream. Go check the back, I told Josh, my voice barely a whisper. Maybe she's just. Josh shook his head, his face pale. I'll be right back, he muttered, hurrying off. I stood there, alone. My eyes locked onto the empty aisle. The place where Claire was supposed to be. I thought I had everything figured out, that we were solid. But now, standing here, I couldn't understand what had happened. Why had she abandoned me? The door stayed shut. She wasn't coming. Chapter 10. I don't know how long I stood there before she approached me. I guess the world had been moving around me, but I had completely tuned it out. My heart still thudded painfully in my chest, and the silence that hung over the church felt suffocating. Then, suddenly, I saw her. Evelyn. The wedding planner. I hadn't noticed her before, not like this. She would always been around, standing off to the side, quietly directing people, making sure everything was running smoothly. I'd never paid much attention to her. I was too focused on Claire, too caught up in the whirlwind of wedding plans. But now, as she walked toward me, I couldn't help but feel the weight of her presence. Are you okay? She asked softly, her voice surprisingly gentle, like she could see the storm inside me. I wanted to laugh, bitter and angry, but it came out as a hollow chuckle. Am I okay? No, I'm not okay. My fiancée she just left me at the altar. Evelyn didn't flinch. She didn't look shocked or uncomfortable like I expected her to. Instead, she simply nodded and took another step closer, her eyes never leaving mine. I know this isn't easy, she said quietly, but you don't have to be alone right now. Her words were calm, almost soothing, but they hit me like a shock to the system. Alone. That word had never felt more real. I couldn't stop staring at her. She was the only person who wasn't looking at me with pity. She wasn't saying anything about how tragic this was or offering empty words of comfort. No. Evelyn was simply there, offering something I hadn't even realized I needed, an anchor in this storm. I don't know what to do, I muttered, my voice shaking now, raw with emotion. I don't know how to fix this. She just left me. You don't have to fix it right now, she said, her tone gentle but firm. But you shouldn't have to stand here by yourself. She didn't offer any more words of sympathy. She didn't need to. Instead, she just extended her hand to me, a simple gesture that felt like a lifeline in the overwhelming sea of emotions swirling around me. Come with me, she said. Let's get you out of here. I looked at her hand for a moment before reaching out and taking it. I didn't know where I was going, but in that moment, I didn't care. Evelyn's calm presence was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. Chapter 4. The ride back to my apartment was quiet. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me, the wedding, the failed promises, the betrayal. I had no words left. I was numb, and Evelyn seemed to understand that. She didn't ask me any questions, didn't push me to talk. She simply drove, her eyes on the road, her hand steady on the wheel. When we arrived at my place, she parked, but neither of us moved. I stared out the window, seeing nothing. I had been holding on to this idea of Claire for so long, believing that we were meant to be, that we were building something that could last forever. But now, all that was left was the crumbling echo of what I thought we had. The pain in my chest felt like a living thing, gnawing away at me, threatening to swallow me whole. Do you want to talk about it? Evelyn finally asked, breaking the silence. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight, like I was choking. What's there to talk about? I said, my voice sounding hollow even to me. She left me. That's all. Evelyn turned to face me, her eyes searching mine, almost as if she were trying to figure me out. You know, you are allowed to feel angry about this. It's okay to feel betrayed. I scoffed. Angry? I'm not angry. I'm just. I don't even know what I am anymore. I thought I knew her. I thought we were. I couldn't finish the sentence. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, then leaned back in her seat. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't just the betrayal. It's realizing that you were blind to everything around you. Her words hit me like a slap. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to admit that maybe, just maybe, Evelyn was right. I should have seen it, I muttered, my hands gripping the edge of the seat. She would been acting distant for weeks, but I kept telling myself it was nothing. Evelyn nodded, her gaze steady. We all ignore the signs. It's easier that way. I turned to look at her then, really look at her. She wasn't just the wedding planner anymore. She was someone who understood, someone who saw the cracks in the facade I'd been hiding behind. And in that moment, I couldn't help but wonder if she was the only one who truly saw me for who I was, broken, lost, and desperate for something I couldn't even name. Maybe I should have seen it, I repeated, my voice softer now, full of regret. Maybe I should have seen everything. But now it's too late. Evelyn didn't say anything else. She just nodded again, as if acknowledging something unspoken between us. I felt like I was sinking deeper into myself, but at least, for the first time today, I wasn't completely alone. Chapter 5. The days that followed felt like a blur. I couldn't bring myself to go back to the church, couldn't stand to face anyone. The disappointment in their eyes, the pity, each look felt like a dagger to the heart. But I didn't want to talk to anyone. Not my parents, not my friends. I barely even spoke to Josh, though I could feel his concern burning through every text he sent. I spent most of my time holed up in my apartment, trying to make sense of everything. But all I could think about was Claire. Why? Why had she done this? What had I missed? The answers danced just out of reach, always out of grasp. Evelyn kept checking in on me. She would call, send messages. At first, I just ignored her, but eventually, I picked up the phone. Hey, I said, sounding defeated. Hey, she responded, her voice calm as always. How are you feeling? I leaned against the counter, staring blankly at the wall. Like shit. There was a pause. I get it. But you are not going through this alone, okay? Her words were simple, but they carried weight. It wasn't like she was offering pity. It was something else. Something steady. I wasn't used to that. In fact, I'd never really had someone just be there without trying to fix things. But that's what Evelyn was doing, she was just there. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I admitted, my voice breaking. I don't know how to let go of her. You don't have to let go of her all at once, Evelyn said softly. You'll figure it out, one day at a time. But maybe it's time to stop looking at this as something you failed at. I didn't know why, but her words struck a chord. She didn't make me feel like I was weak. She made me feel like I had a chance to rebuild, even if I couldn't see how yet. Over the next couple of days, we began to talk more. She would show up with coffee or lunch, her presence calming in ways I didn't understand. We would talk about anything but Claire, at first. About her work, the wedding business, random things that felt miles away from the mess I was in. And then one afternoon, as we were sitting on the couch, sipping our drinks in silence, Evelyn said something that completely caught me off guard. You know, I have seen people like you before. I raised an eyebrow, unsure of what she meant. People like me. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. People who get lost in someone else. People who think their entire world revolves around someone who doesn't even care to see them for who they really are. I sat up straighter. What's that supposed to mean? I'm just saying, she continued, that maybe Claire didn't see you the way you thought she did. Maybe she never really understood you. I felt a flicker of anger in my chest, but I pushed it down. I didn't want to get into this. You don't know what happened between us. No, I don't, she agreed, her voice calm. But I know that sometimes we get so wrapped up in someone else that we forget to see ourselves. We forget what we deserve. I looked at her, confusion and frustration building. And what do I deserve? Her eyes met mine, steady and unwavering. You deserve to be with someone who sees you, who values you for who you really are, not just who they want you to be. It was like she had peeled back a layer I didn't even know existed. Her words weren't just comforting, they were true. But the realization stung. I'd spent so much time convincing myself that Claire was the one, that I never stopped to think about what I really needed. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. I just sat there, feeling everything I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. I wasn't just grieving Claire, I was grieving myself. I had let myself slip away into someone else's dream. But Evelyn, she saw me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe there was hope. Chapter 8 was a week later when the thought first crept into my mind. It wasn't a loud voice or a grand idea. No, it started small, like a seed planted deep inside me, its roots slowly spreading through my veins. Revenge. I hadn't meant to think about it. I hadn't meant to even consider it. But the more I let my mind wander, the clearer it became. Claire had humiliated me. She had abandoned me, in front of everyone. And what was worse, she had disappeared without an explanation, leaving me to deal with the wreckage alone. My pride had been shattered. My heart was broken. I wasn't the kind of person who plotted revenge. At least, I never thought I was. But the thought of her getting away with it, that gnawed at me. She had done this to me, and she was living her life, untouched, while I was drowning in the aftermath. I found myself staring out the window, lost in the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I wanted answers. I needed answers. Not just for closure, but for some kind of justice. I wanted her to understand the damage she had done, the pain she had caused. I wanted her to feel it the way I felt it every single day since she walked out. And then there was Evelyn. Evelyn, who had been my rock through all of this. She would be there for me in ways I never expected. The calm, unwavering presence in my chaotic world. But there was something in her voice lately that stirred something darker inside me. She wasn't just sympathetic, she was encouraging. Subtle, but there. You deserve better, she would said. She hurt you. She should pay for that. And I'd let her words sink in. I'd listened. Every time she said something, every time she hinted at the fact that Claire had wronged me, I felt something shift. It wasn't just pity, it was the seed of something else, a deep, unsettling urge to make Claire regret her decision. One evening, as Evelyn and I were sitting in my apartment, the tension between us felt heavier than usual. I was scrolling through my phone, not really looking at anything, when she finally spoke up. You know, you don't have to keep wondering about what happened with Claire, she said, her voice low and steady. You could make her answer for what she did. I froze. The words were simple, but they sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean? You could find out where she is. You could confront her. Get the answers you deserve. She looked at me with those calculating eyes of hers. You don't have to just move on. You could make her realize how wrong she was. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. For a moment, I was still. Everything inside me screamed to push the thought away. But I didn't. I didn't push it. I let it linger, let it grow. I don't know, I muttered, staring down at my phone, the screen blurry with my own breath. Is it really worth it? I mean, it won't change anything, right? Evelyn leaned forward, her voice almost a whisper now. It might not change everything, but it will give you something. It will give you control. Right now, Claire holds all the power. She walked away without a word, without a care. Don't you want to take that power back? I felt a chill run through me as I considered her words. She was right. Claire had taken everything from me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. But if I confronted her, If I forced her to face what she would done, would it give me peace, or would it just make things worse? You have to decide if you want to be free, Evelyn continued, her gaze piercing through me. But you can't be free if you are still holding on to her. I sat there, in that moment, trying to make sense of it all. The idea of confronting Claire, of forcing her to look me in the eyes and apologize, made my chest tighten. But it also made something inside me burn with a dark, twisted satisfaction. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I knew one thing for sure. If I went down this path, there would be no turning back. And Evelyn, she was leading me down that path, one word at a time. Chapter 7. The day came when I couldn't wait any longer. I had been wrestling with the idea for days, but now, it was like a fire inside me, demanding to be lit. I couldn't stop myself anymore. Claire needed to understand the pain she had caused. I needed to confront her, to make her see what she had done to me. Evelyn had been the voice in my ear, the one who kept pushing me, urging me to do it. At first, I'd resisted. But now, I felt like I had no choice. I couldn't let Claire get away with this, no matter how much I wanted to believe she would had her reasons. I pulled up to her apartment building, my hands clenched around the steering wheel. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. I hadn't spoken to her since the wedding day, hadn't heard from her at all. I had no idea where she was emotionally, but I couldn't stay in this limbo any longer. I needed answers, needed closure. I stood outside her door for what felt like forever, the weight of my own emotions pushing down on me, suffocating me with each passing second. I finally knocked, the sound of my fist against the wood feeling like it echoed through my entire body. A moment later, the door cracked open, and there she was. Claire. Her face was soft, tired, almost vulnerable. She looked at me with those same eyes I'd fallen in love with, but now there was something different. A wall. She didn't seem surprised to see me, but she also didn't seem pleased. "John," she said, her voice flat, almost distant. "I didn't expect you to come here." "You didn't expect me to come?" I scoffed, anger bubbling to the surface. "You didn't expect me to come after you left me at the altar? You just left me, Claire." Her gaze faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "I know you are angry. But this isn't the time." I felt the heat of betrayal rush through me, clouding my judgment. "Not the time." I snapped. "It's been the time. You think you can just walk away and pretend everything's fine. You don't get to do that, Claire." She closed her eyes for a brief second, her lips pressed together as if she was searching for the right words. When she spoke again, it was quieter, softer. "I didn't leave because I wanted to hurt you, John. I left because I couldn't go through with it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't the person you thought I was." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean? You weren't ready. We had everything planned, Claire." "I thought we were." "I know what you thought," she interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "But that's the problem, John. You thought you knew me. You didn't. You never really knew me." I felt something crack inside me, a mixture of confusion and pain. Then what was all of this? What was it all for? All the years we spent together. The promises we made. What was it if it wasn't real? She looked down at her feet, unable to meet my eyes. I thought it was real too. But somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't being honest with myself. And I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep promising you a future I wasn't sure I wanted. I stood there in stunned silence. The words were like poison, slowly seeping into my bloodstream, infecting everything I had believed in. This wasn't just a breakup. This was betrayal at the deepest level. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I demanded, my voice raw. "Why did you leave me like that? You couldn't even give me a reason. A real reason." Claire took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the situation had finally caught up to her. "Because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to tell you that I didn't feel the same way anymore. I thought you'd hate me. I laughed bitterly, the sound full of disbelief. You think I hate you? I trusted you, Claire. I trusted you more than anything. And you betrayed me. She flinched at my words, but I didn't care anymore. I had to say it. I had to let her hear how deeply she had hurt me. You don't get to just walk away and expect me to be okay with it. You don't get to break my heart like this and think it'll all just go away. She took a step back, her voice breaking as she finally met my gaze. I never meant to hurt you, John. I swear. But I can't change what I have already done. I stared at her, that burning rage in my chest finally giving way to something else. Something colder. No, I said quietly, my voice steady but hard. You can't change it. But maybe I can. For a moment, there was a silence between us, thick and heavy. The weight of everything we had been, everything we would lost, hung in the air, suffocating both of us. I can't forgive you, Claire, I whispered. But I can move on. And I will. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry. I really am. For everything. I turned away, the finality of it all sinking into my bones. There was no more to say. The betrayal had already been felt. The damage had been done. And as I walked away from her, I knew one thing for sure. I was done. Done with the lies, done with the hurt. I would rebuild. I would move on. But I would never forget. Chapter 8. The days after my confrontation with Claire were a blur. The anger had burned away, replaced by an emptiness I couldn't fill. I had gotten the answers I thought I needed, but it didn't make anything feel better. If anything, I felt more lost than before. What now? What was I supposed to do with all the broken pieces of myself? I found myself reaching out to Evelyn more often, not because I needed to talk, but because she was the only one who didn't try to fix me. She simply was. And in her presence, there was a quiet comfort that I didn't realize I needed. One evening, a few weeks after my meeting with Claire, Evelyn showed up at my apartment with takeout and a movie, her usual way of offering a distraction. I hadn't even realized how much I missed these small things until she was there, sitting beside me, just like before. You look better, she said softly, her eyes scanning my face, as if she could see the changes in me. The raw edges of pain had softened, but I was far from healed. Yeah, I said with a faint smile. I guess I'm getting there. She set down the takeout container, her gaze shifting between me and the food. Good. But you know, getting there isn't the same as being there. You don't have to hold all this in. It's okay to be angry. I'm not angry anymore, I said, surprising myself. I'm just tired. Tired of the whole thing. Evelyn's expression softened. You are allowed to be tired. You have been through a lot. But there's more to life than just surviving it, you know. I nodded slowly. I knew she was right. But I couldn't quite figure out what it meant to live again. What did it mean to rebuild, to move on, to start fresh? I don't know how to move on, I admitted. It's like I'm stuck between two lives, one that doesn't exist anymore and one I haven't found yet. Evelyn leaned back on the couch, her eyes thoughtful. You are not stuck. You are just starting over. And starting over doesn't mean you have to do it alone. I glanced over at her, my heart heavy with something I couldn't quite place. I don't want to be alone, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop. Them. She turned toward me, her expression unreadable, but there was something soft in her eyes. You don't have to be alone. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since everything had fallen apart. Evelyn had been there for me when I needed someone the most. She had listened when no one else did, and she had given me the space to heal at my own pace. She had been my constant, the only person I could rely on. And now, sitting there with her, I realized something. Something I hadn't even considered. I'm not ready for anything serious, I said quickly, feeling my heart race in my chest. But before I could finish, she reached out, placing a hand gently on mine. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. Willing to take the next step. To trust that what comes next might be better than what came before. The air between us shifted, and I felt it, something that hadn't been there before, something real. I didn't know what it was, but it was there, filling the space between us, making the silence feel comfortable. Right. And then she smiled. A small, quiet smile that made my heart flutter, in a way I hadn't expected. I don't know what this is, Evelyn, I said, feeling unsure, but also strangely relieved. But I don't want to lose this. Whatever this is. Her smile widened, her eyes softening with something warm. Then don't lose it. Let it be what it's meant to be. We'll figure it out together. There was no grand gesture, no dramatic confession. There didn't need to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path. I had no idea where it would lead, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. Chapter No, it wasn't perfect. In fact, nothing about it was perfect. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't need things to be perfect. I had come to terms with the mess of my life, the parts that didn't fit, the broken pieces that would never be whole again. But I was learning to live with it, and maybe that was the first step toward healing. Evelyn and I had started spending more time together, and it wasn't just out of convenience or pity. I didn't feel like I was leaning on her anymore. It was more like we were walking side by side, each of us figuring out the next steps. There were days when the weight of everything still crushed me, when I would get lost in my thoughts and wonder what could have been with Claire. But there were other days when I felt lighter, when the cloud that had hung over me started to clear, just a little. It was the little things that started to matter. The way Evelyn's hand felt in mine when we went for walks, or the way she would laugh when I made some stupid joke, or the quiet moments when we would just sit together, no words needed. One evening, as we sat on the couch in my apartment, her head resting against my shoulder, our fingers intertwined, I realized that I was okay. Not great. Not perfect. But okay. And that was enough for now. I think I'm starting to get it, I said softly, breaking the silence. Evelyn shifted slightly, looking up at me with curious eyes. Get what? Everything, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The way forward. The way out of all the mess. I don't have to have it all figured out yet. But I'm not stuck anymore. Her eyes softened, and she smiled, a smile that was warm and understanding. You are not stuck, John. You have always had way out. It just took a little time to see it. I nodded, absorbing her words. She was right. I had been so focused on the past, so wrapped up in the life I thought I was supposed to have, that I had forgotten the most important thing. I had a future. It wasn't defined by Claire, or by any of the mistakes I'd made. It was mine to create, and I was starting to realize that the possibilities were endless. As the days turned into weeks, I started to move forward. I spent more time with my family, reconnected with old friends, and slowly, I began to rebuild parts of myself I thought I had lost. There were still moments when the past crept in, when memories of Claire would sneak up on me like a shadow. But I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I had learned that they didn't define me. Evelyn and I talked more about our future, about what we wanted, what we needed. There were no grand declarations of love, no rushed promises. Just two people taking things one step at a time, learning about each other, and learning about themselves. I don't know where this is going, I admitted one night, as we sat together, the city lights flickering outside the window. But I want to keep going. She looked at me, her gaze steady. Me too. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I didn't need to have all the answers, because the journey, for the first time, felt worth it. There was something honest in the way Evelyn and I were moving forward, something that didn't feel rushed, or forced, or like it had to be anything other than what it was. And maybe, Just maybe, that was enough. I wasn't sure what the future would hold. But I knew that whatever came next, I wasn't facing it alone. Chapter this. It's funny how life works. Just when you think everything is falling apart, it starts to come together in ways you never expected. I spent so many months drowning in regret, anger, and confusion, unable to move forward. And yet, here I was, standing on the edge of something new, something real, something worth living for. The truth was, I hadn't realized how broken I was until I started putting myself back together. Slowly, piece by piece. It wasn't some dramatic transformation, no instant fix. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, like the steady growth of a tree that's been pruned and watered over time. And each day that passed, I felt a little more like myself again. Evelyn had become a constant in my life, something I didn't even know I needed. She wasn't just a distraction or a rebound. She was someone who saw me for who I really was, flaws and all. She didn't try to fix me or change me. She simply was there. And I realized, with a calm certainty, that this was what I had been missing all along. Someone who accepted me without trying to force me into some version of myself that didn't fit. I looked at her one evening as we sat together, the city light spilling through the window. "Do you ever think about the future?" I asked, almost shyly, though the question had been on my mind for weeks. Evelyn glanced at me, her lips curving into that familiar soft smile that always made my heart skip a beat. "I think about it," she said, her voice steady, "but I don't think about it in the way I used to. I don't try to plan everything out or worry about what's coming next. I just let it be." Her words resonated with me, and I realized how much I had been trying to control, to force things to fit my idea of what life was supposed to be. But life didn't work that way. It wasn't about forcing things to happen, it was about letting go and seeing what unfolded naturally. And in that moment, sitting next to Evelyn, I understood. I had spent so much time worrying about what had gone wrong in my past, so focused on the person I had lost, that I had forgotten to look at what was right in front of me. "Maybe we don't need to have it all figured out," I said, my voice quieter now, as if I was speaking a new truth to myself. "Maybe we just need to keep moving forward, step by step." Evelyn nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. "Exactly. You are not the same person you were before, and neither am I. We are not supposed to have everything figured out, John. We are just supposed to lie." Her words sunk in, and I realized how much they were true. The future wasn't a fixed destination. It was a journey, a path that I couldn't predict, but one I was willing to walk, with her, by my side. There was no need to rush or force anything. What mattered was that we were building something real together. Slowly. Steadily. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I wasn't afraid of what had happened in the past or what might come in the future. I was simply here, now, with her. "You know," I said, looking over at Evelyn, "I thought I'd never find my way again. But I think, with you, I just might." She smiled, her hand reaching for mine. "I think so too." And as we sat there, hands intertwined, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. Not as two people trying to fix each other, but as two people who had found something worth holding on to. This was my resolution, my peace. I had let go of the past, stopped chasing something that was never meant to be. And in doing so, I had found a future that was all my own.